Good morning. Welcome to this hour-long Yin Yoga class. I'm Jen Shannon, and I'm so pleased that you're going to do a Yin Yoga class today. Yin Yoga is a wonderful complement to other styles of yoga, as well as other styles of exercise and just life in general. Yin and Yang are terms of relationship in the Taoist system, this ancient Chinese system. And they refer to different kinds of energies. Everything has both energies. Some have more yin, some have more yang. This practice is more yin in that we're going to assume the shape of the poses, and then we're going to just relax into them and use as little muscular effort as possible and stay with the pose in order to allow the deeper tissues of the body, the connective tissues, the fascia, as well as the joints and all the surroundings of the joints to be a little stressed. And then in that stress, holding that stress for a little while, when we let it go, it revitalizes that area. So it's really good for your joints. We do everything pretty much on the floor, and we hold the poses for 3 or 4 minutes. So here we are. Let's go ahead and begin. Find a comfortable seated pose. We'll begin with a centering. You could be cross-legged like this, or you could sit up. You could sit in a kneeling pose, seiza, which is the Japanese term for kneeling. I need a couple blocks to bring me a little higher. This is another option. Well, that takes my head right out of the film. So I'm going to stick to the sitting on a blanket cross-legged. Okay. So let's begin. Welcome if you're just coming to class. Welcome to this hour-long Yin Yoga class. Let's begin with a centering. So find a comfortable seated position where you can feel a nice long spine from the tailbone to the crown of the head. And we're going to begin with some simple sun breaths. Turn the palms out, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. One more. And now float your hands down to wherever they just naturally can rest. Slide your eyes closed or gaze gently at the floor. Soften your shoulders and let them melt down away from your ears. And begin to draw your awareness inward. Noticing your inner landscape just as it is this morning. And now begin to focus on your breath and have a nice, breathe gently into your belly. Feeling the belly expand on the inhalation and draw back towards the center on the exhalation. Just becoming aware of your inner landscape and allowing yourself to sort of gather and bringing yourself into the present moment just as you are right now. And then gently open your eyes. We'll move into our first yin pose. First pose is butterfly pose. So for this pose, you're going to, it's nice to have a blanket underneath you to give yourself a little support around on the feet, on the sides of the feet. You're going to place the soles of the feet together and you're going to push the heels away from you so you get a nice big diamond shape. So people have asked me, how big should the diamond be? Well, it really depends on your body. So just so that you feel a nice openness in here and you can fold forward to whatever degree you can, letting the spine curve, letting the head come down. And if you feel you need some support for your head, elbows to the calves or the shins, hands on either side. That's one option, either side of the face, that is. Another option would be to take a block, support your elbows. Another option is if your hips are feeling cranky and your knees are aching a little, you can give your knees a little support, either with blocks or a blanket tucked in there. So we're going to hold this pose for 3 minutes. Each of you is going to have a pose that looks a little different, and that is totally okay. Just find your edge. In Yin Yoga, we assume the shape of the pose. If your hips are starting to feel cranky, you can sit up on the edge of a blanket. Bring the blanket back, sit up on the edge. So we assume the shape of the pose. And then notice where the pose is targeting for you. So where do you feel the most sensation? So for me, I feel it in the lumbar spine. That's the lower spine. I also feel it in the hips. You don't want to feel it in the knees, so if you do, give them some support. So those are common areas that are targeted in this pose. The spine, you're draping over, creating a little more length in the spine, and you're creating some gentle stress in the hips. It's important to find just the right amount of stress or sensation. No sharp pain, no electrical sensation. If you feel those, you back off. Or if it just feels like it's more than you can bear, back off. Don't go as deeply into the pose, or if the pose just feels impossible to you today, just move out altogether. So the theme of the class today is letting go. This is a practice of letting go. So what are we letting go of? Well, letting go of judgment. Letting go of comparing mind. Letting go of fixing mind. Bringing the awareness back to the present moment. So when I say letting go of fixing mind, of course, if you are feeling too much sensation or pain, you move out of the pose and adjust. But if your mind wanders off to something that you want to be fixing later in the day, just gently bring it back to the body and the breath. Just 30 more seconds in the pose. And then pressing into your hands, slowly come on up. We move very slowly out of these poses to give the tissues a chance to adapt. Take your hands on the outside of your thighs and draw them up. Walk the feet a little wider than your hips. Place your hands behind you and windshield wiper the knees to either side. Just giving those hips a little movement. And back to center. All right, from here we're going to move into dragon pose. So it has a dramatic name because it is a dramatic pose. So let's put the blocks in front of you. I'm going to demonstrate it from the side initially to give you a chance to see that. So we're starting out in tabletop, but up on the blocks. And if you don't have blocks, any kind of equivalent. And if you don't have blocks and you just want to start on the floor, that's fine. The blocks just give you a little more space. So step forward with the right foot. So the right foot, that's what that's looking like there, okay? Scoot that back leg back. So you're walking the back leg back. So now you see you have a nice long 45-degree angle there. You might scoot that front ankle in a little bit so that the knee actually comes forward of the ankle. But you're supporting yourself with your arms. And now press into the hands and lift the chest. And just breathe and feel, where does this pose target for you? Be holding this pose for 3 minutes. And there are some variations that we'll do in this pose. And you can choose any one of them as the place you want to hang out. So this is one. The second one would be to come down, lean more forward into that front ankle. So you're giving more emphasis to the Achilles tendon, but you're still holding some of your weight with your hands and your arms. Third option would be to move your blocks to the inside and come down onto your elbows, allowing that front knee to drop to the side slightly. So you're getting a little more of an inner groin, inner thigh emphasis. So you've got 3 positions. And you can move slowly from one to the next, but see if you can maintain one of them for at least about a minute before you switch over. We have about 1.5 minutes left. 30 seconds left. Letting go judgment, letting go of comparing, letting go of fixing. And now come up onto your hands, press back, press the hips back, and bring that right leg back. Let's take a moment between sides. We call this, some people call this the rebound pose or the resonance pose. So just taking a moment between sides to just notice. Let the body really fully absorb the benefit of that pose. You might do a couple rounds of cat-cow if you like, dropping the belly, lifting the tailbone, looking forward, and then arching the back up and looking back. And let's move on to the left leg forward, right leg back. Scooting or walking that back knee back, and bring that front ankle back a little bit. Take your blocks on either side. And we'll start out in the pigeon pose. No, this is not pigeon pose. This is the pose of a beautiful swan. That's what they call this in Yin Yoga. Swan pose. So this is a swan with a long neck floating gracefully around the pond. So effortless looking, those swans. And now if you'd like to switch to have a little more emphasis down into the front ankle, you come down and lean down into that more. So you see that Yin Yoga is not the same thing as restorative yoga, in that we're actually assuming some poses that are not just about letting go and relaxing. There is some stress, some pressure getting created. Now, if you'd like to move into that inner pose, take the blocks to the inside of the front leg, bend the elbows and put them on the block. Some people can reach all the way to the floor with their elbows, but that is not me. One minute left in this pose. Part of letting go in Yin Yoga also means sort of letting go of the holding or the tension that's holding you back from just dropping into the pose. Letting go of the
muscular effort, using just enough muscular effort to maintain the shape of the pose. But otherwise relaxing, letting down. And then slowly pushing into your hands, coming back out. And for your rebound pose, I'm going to give you a choice. You can either go into downward dog, or you can come down into child's pose. Sitting back on your heels. So you choose. And then everyone come down, lie on your belly, elbows bent. So you're lifted up now and there's some pressure on the L5, L4, S1 region, the lower back there. Legs are parallel, about hip width apart. Relax your belly. Relax your buttocks. If you want to support your head with a block, it's an option. You can also take your thumbs and place them on the third eye, which is right between and slightly above the eyebrows. Now, if this is too intense sensation-wise in your lower back, you can walk your elbows forward. For some people, just lying flat on the floor is enough sensation. So you find your edge and breathe. We'll give it about a minute, and then I'm going to give you some options for going higher if you're not feeling much sensation at all. But stay with that. And I want to read you a poem. But before I do, I'll give you the coming up options. So one option would be to take a blanket and place it under your elbows to bring you higher. Another option would be to extend your arms out straight, slightly wider than your shoulders, hands angled away from each other. That's going to give you your most, that's seal pose, so that's going to give you your most sensation. So you find your edge. We have another minute and a half. I'm going to read you a poem called Inner Color by Dana Falls. On a day as gray as this, the only way to keep my spirits up is to generate some inner color. Into my imagination, I summon a hill of daffodils, a hall filled with Van Gogh paintings, a brilliant mosaic with St. Ignatius gesturing to the stars. I conjure a raised bed garden at its peak of productivity, with red tomatoes ripe for picking, pole beans hanging thick beneath green leaves. In my mind's eye, I see a perfect autumn day, and I'm standing at the peak of a mountain looking down on a flaming sea of maples, oaks, and hickories. When I open my eyes to this dull and foggy morning, the recent memories of color grant me patience and acceptance for the moment as it is, and help me to see one crimson cardinal preening in a distant tree, the only highlight in this otherwise cheerless landscape. Okay, slowly coming out of the pose. Come down onto the floor. Fold your hands in front of you and release your forehead to your hands. Lift the feet up and drop one side and then the other. Windshield wiping the feet gives a nice release to the back. And then release your feet. Roll over and sit back up. All right. Nicely done, everybody. Let's now move into wide-legged child pose. So for this, it's not as wide as frog, but your knees are wider than your hips. Your feet can come towards each other like they are in child pose. And for some people, it's easy to come down to the floor. And other people need a little bit more support, like a couple blankets or a bolster. So, first of all, come down to whatever degree you can and reach your arms in front of you. So you're sitting back towards your heels, your knees are wider than your hips, and you're dropping down to whatever degree you can. If this causes knee pain, one thing you can try is to put a blanket up against the knee crease there, and that kind of holds your knees a little more open and can make that a little more friendly for the knees. But if it generally just doesn't work for you, you can come up a little higher and just drop your chest down, or you can lie on your back and do happy baby pose, which I can show you in a minute. But first, everyone who can, settle into wide-legged child pose. Dropping the chest towards the floor. If you would like to switch to happy baby pose, you come over onto your back and reach your legs up, grab the outside of the feet, knees are wide, you pull the knees down towards the floor. Some people call this stirrup pose too. So that's another option. If you can't reach your feet, take a hold of your ankles or the back of your thighs. But for all those in wide-legged child pose, we're not going to come into a twist. So come up a little and then draw that right arm down and through, and bring the other arm up and over, around, as if you're trying to grab the other thigh. Of course, you won't necessarily meet that thigh. Your hand may be not quite as far over, but And then bring the left hand down to the floor, press back up, and turn side. So now you're bringing the left shoulder down and reaching that hand as far over as you can, reaching the right hand up, coming into your twist this way. So just noticing what areas of the body does this target for you? Where do you feel your greatest sensation? So for me, I feel it in the inner groins, the inner thighs up close to where they attach to the pubic bone. Of course, I feel a twist, and I feel it some in my shoulder. Feel a twist in my spine, some sensation in kind of the lumbar thoracic area of the spine. Again, you don't want to feel it in the knees, so if you feel it in the knees, adjust. Come back up a little bit. Now let's come back to center, to that center wide-legged child pose. Remember, take support under your chest if you need it. And if you're coming up a little higher in the knees, that can be helpful. See if you can walk your fingertips away and feel the opening in the armpits. And then walk on back. Walk your knees in. And I'm going to give you a choice. You can lie on your back or you can lie on your belly. Your choice. I'm going to turn over and lie on my back. Just either place. If you're on your belly, just relax. Maybe support your head with your hands. If you're on your back, just sink into the floor. Absorbing the resonance of the pose. Seeing if you can meet whatever is there with a kind of curiosity, non-judgment, a kind of a gentle friendliness. It's easier to be friendly if we're not judging or comparing or trying to fix. It's easier to be less reactive and more responsive to the moment. And then bend your knees. Roll over to one side and push on up to a seated pose one more time. So we're going to come next into shoelace pose. So for this pose, there are variations, and what I would recommend that you have before we get into this are a couple blankets. Maybe set them behind you. You may want to sit up on them. So set that up. And then
to get into the pose, I'm going to be mirroring you. So this is my left and this is my right. So take the left and cross it over the right. And then, now for some people this is just too intense on that bottom leg. So you can keep that leg straight and keep this like this and do the pose this way. But the full pose, for which I need to sit up on the blankets because my hips are not quite open enough. You sit up, you stack one knee over the other. So, and the feet are, you're sort of walking them out that way. So they're kind of ideally sort of parallel to each other. So here you are now. Remember, you can do it with this bottom leg straight if you need to, or your knee might not be quite stacked exactly over the other knee. So find your place. This is an intense pose. But again, you don't want to be feeling sharp pain in the knees or anything like that. If that's the case, adjust the pose. Now take your left hand and place it on the floor, or if you need the floor to be a little higher, you put a block there. And then reach the other hand up. Reach, so you're nice and long. And if that hand gets tired, you can drop it to the head. And keep breathing with that. I'm going to read you another poem. This is called Earth, Teach Me. Earth, teach me stillness as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me caring as parents who secure their young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands all alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain. Coming back up to center, let's take a moment to come forward. Of course, coming forward makes it a more intense pose, so find your edge in this. Some of you may find this is just plenty intense. And now come on back up and let's move on over to the other side. So releasing that top leg, release the other leg. Maybe give those knees a little massage between sides. Nice. All right, now we're going to switch sides. So left under right. Walk the feet forward and away from each other, and stack those knees as best you can. Remember, you can keep that bottom leg straight if you need to. One side may prove quite a bit more intense than the other. Let's put the hand down and reach over. And now come back to the center and come forward. Yin Yoga is very good for the joints, for the fascia and the connective tissue. It's also calming for the nervous system. So many of the nerves in our body live in the fascia, that beautiful sort of mostly fluid but kind of silky material that surrounds everything in our body. There's a superficial level right under the skin, and then there's fascia around everything, from the muscles to the cells, around the organs, and then within the organs, in the cells that make up the organs. So it's sort of like a tangerine. When you peel off its white inside, and then when you separate the pieces, they're surrounded with a white film. And then when you break those open, they break open into little triangular little packets that are surrounded with a kind of a clear. This is like the fascia in your body. And it's mostly fluid, like 70%, and then it has little microfibers. And it's meant to function like two pieces of silk sliding back and forth to give things beautiful, slippery, easy motion. But also it's a place that the electrical system of the body communicates, and the nervous system is very much involved with the fascia. So what I was going to say is that this can be a very relaxing practice as well, because we're helping those nerves be more comfortable. All right, let's come on out of that. Ooh, nice. Slide off your blankets if you're on them. Give your legs a little tapping, maybe. And now let's do a little massage. So start at the top of the thigh. Run the hands down and make some circles around your knees. Oh, yeah. Gotta love those knees. They do so much for us. They're so important. And then maybe slide all the way down to the ankles. Sorry, you can't see my ankles there. Give the ankles some circles. The joints love circular motion. So, little circles around those joints. And then you might see if you can reach all the way to your toes, and if not, bend your legs and just give your feet a little rubbing. Yeah, so I'll show you what I'm doing. Just giving my feet a little rubbing. Let's
do the other one. How lovely is that? Very nice. Okay, so for our next pose, we're going to do half butterfly, which you can sit up on the, if you find yourself kind of slumping back like this and it's hard for you to sort of, so give your spine a little help to feel longer by sitting up on the edge of a blanket. That's an option. And then if you find your knees don't like hanging out in space like that, or if they don't, you don't get enough support, you can roll up a blanket under it. Bend the other knee, bring it into the inside of that thigh, and lean on over. So if you don't need that support, just turning towards that leg and just drape yourself over. If this knee feels a little sore in that position, give it a little height under it. You can move this foot out a little bit, creating a little more space on the knee. Meanwhile, you're just draping down over. Noticing what you're targeting in this pose. So I feel sensation, I'm obviously getting quite a lengthening in the back of the leg. And also I'm feeling it quite a bit on my side. So this would be your right side. I feel it there as I come into this sort of gentle twist. But you may find it other places. Those are sort of the main areas the pose is meant to target, but because all our bodies are different and you may have some tension elsewhere, keep the neck fairly neutral, in line with the spine, that means. But you can relax a little. You just don't want to strain your neck. Just 30 more seconds. And pushing into the floor with your hands, slowly come back up. Straighten that bent knee. Take a moment to give those knees a little massage, give those legs a little massage, and then coming over to the other side. So this straight leg is angled out to the side slightly, giving this knee any support it might need. This Sole of this foot is against the thigh, and then you're turning and releasing. I'm going to read you a poem as you let down into this pose. It's called For Equilibrium, a Blessing by John O'Donohue. Like the joy of the sea coming home to shore, may the relief of laughter rinse through your soul. As the wind loves to call things to dance, may your gravity be lightened by grace. Like the dignity of moonlight restoring the earth, may your thoughts incline with reverence and respect. As water takes whatever shape it is in, so free may you be about who you become. As silence smiles on the other side of what's said, may your sense of irony bring perspective. As time remains free of all that it frames, may your mind stay clear of all it names. May your prayer of listening deepen enough to hear in the depths the laughter of God. Just another 30 seconds. And then using your hands to slowly press back up. Unwind your legs. And come on over onto your back. Lying on your back, draw your knees into your chest. Give them a hug. You can rock gently side to side. And then releasing your feet to the floor. Walking your feet out. Turn your palms up. Release your feet to relax wherever they fall. And if you notice your body could use a little support in this pose, this is Shavasana or relaxation pose, then by all means, fold up a blanket under your head, roll up a blanket under your knees or a bolster if you need that, and cover yourself with a blanket for warmth. Really important to let ourselves absorb the benefit of the practice. So you might take a nice long inhale through your nose, and then a big sigh out. Close your eyes or just soften your gaze. Scan your body. See if you can notice any sensations, any resonance from the practice we've done today. And bring a kind of a gentle friendliness to whatever is there for you. And then fold one hand and the other onto your chest. Feel the weight of your hands. The rise and the fall of your chest as you breathe. And now allow a gentle smile to come to your lips. Feel that lifting your cheeks and the corner of your eyes. Feel that smiling energy filling your face and pouring down into your heart and your hands. Filling your heart with smiling energy. And now feel that smiling energy spreading through your whole body, every tissue, every cell. And then releasing your hands and wiggling your fingers and your toes. Drawing your knees into your chest and giving them a hug. Rolling to one side. And as you're ready, pressing up to a comfortable seated pose one more time. Taking a moment to close your eyes or gaze gently at the floor and notice what you've cultivated in class today. Really let yourself feel it. Place your hands on your heart. Have a moment of gratitude for your practice today, for all that you are, bringing gentle friendliness and gratitude. And now, bringing the hands into prayer pose, thumbs at the center of your chest. Let's end the class chanting the sound of Om together. So inhaling. Namaste. Thank you all for joining me. It's been my absolute pleasure.